Cops have read it. What's the most bullshit-sounding excuse you got that actually turned out to be true? No cops are posting in here anyway, so I'll throw my hat into the ring as a defense attorney. Guy pulled over for impaired driving and charged later with OWI. My boss gets the criminal complaint and the guy shows up for his initial appearance and tells her he hadn't been drinking despite horrifically failing the sobriety test. She's literally sitting next to him and he's obviously weighted again, disappointing but not uncommon for alcoholics. The deputies arrest him for bail jumping because he drove himself to court that day, and while out on bail he's not supposed to drink. He adamantly denies drinking. Blood tests come back. He didn't drink. Dude's diabetic without knowing it and naturally got himself drunk, because sometimes when it goes untreated, diabetes can cause symptoms that look just like intoxication. Got him some insulin and the charges dismissed. I can't speak for the cop, but freshman year of college I was having a nice evening outside, drinking some soda and smoking a tobacco pipe with my 3 roommates, long-term friends I grew up with, when one went into the dorm. He called me a minute later and said, "Come back to the dorm, police are here and they are looking for you." I am on my way over and they see me and run up to me, in case I were to run. They asked my name and if I was here all night. I confirmed both my name and that I was at the dorm all evening. Apparently, another freshman guy my age, build, and height signed in under my name for an intramural flag football game, got into a tussle with an opposing team member, punched him and broke his jaw. He was last seen fleeing our direction. I'm sure my excuse sounded completely bogus, but it was the truth. Police officer here. 3 years ago, living in CO, the station got a call about a ghost in someone's house. I wasn't the one on the phone, but apparently the person was hysterical and hard to understand. I arrived on the scene. This woman of about 40 was standing in her front yard. The house is upper middle class, pretty bland. She swears there is a ghost inside. The only reason we didn't disregard the call is because she claimed there was screaming in her attic. She claimed the ghost was doing it. I was supposed to make sure an animal wasn't stuck up there or something. She explains she has been hearing this screaming and bumping on the walls the past 2 days. She is the only one who lives there, no pets who could cause it, neighbors are in vacation. So, of course, the logical explanation is a ghost. She was far too afraid to check the attic, so I head up there. It was full of cobwebs and musty, and of course the only light bulb didn't work. I take a step, and all of a sudden I hear banging and muffled yelling. Navigating with my flashlight, I head over to the source, a corner in the far back. There was a hobo there. His leg had fallen through the floor and was stuck, and he couldn't get out. He started crying tears of joy when I walked over, thanking me and asking for help simultaneously. I pull him out, trying to scratch his leg as little as possible, and lead him outside after letting him stop and get some water. He told me he was just looking for a place to spend the night, and I felt like he had gotten punished enough for his trespass. I asked if he needed anything else before I sent him on his way. Right when he opened his mouth to speak, I realized that he was a 50-foot-tall, grey leviathan from the Paleolithic era. He said, "Well, could I have about 350? I responded, "I ain't giving you no 350, Loch Ness monster. Get out of here." Looking defeated, he began to make his way to the nearest lake. I was the one with the excuse. Forgot my keys at friend's place before going out drinking that night. Get home at 2 a.m. No keys. Only one of our windows didn't have ghetto bars, so I took the screen out and started pushing, smacking it up. Locks were on the sides only providing friction. As I'm halfway in, I just feel WUMP. Got tackled into the house. The officer was still outside, holding onto my ankles. I look up and just said, "I'm astonished by your response time. I actually live here. Let me get up, unlock the door, and give you my ID." So I did, and he stares at it for a second, then says sorry and sprints off to look for the person they were actually in the area looking for. Late one night, there was a driver acting very suspiciously in an area known for drug deals, so I pulled him over and asked what he was doing there in the middle of the night. He stalled and stuttered a bit, and then told me that he was just waiting on his friend. I asked what his friend was doing, and after some more stalling, he told me she was going to bring him an alarm clock. It was pretty obvious he was making shit up as he went, but then another car passed us and pulled over in front of him. A woman got out carrying a Walmart bag, and inside was an alarm clock. I'm not a cop, but I saw this interaction on an episode of Live PD. Not a cop, but I have a pretty good one. In high school, some of my buddies sold weed. Driving around in a car with a scale, baggies, and 2 to 4 ounces at any given time. One day T&E decided to go to a really good taco stand for lunch in between deliveries. E is driving. They're making their way downtown when E starts laughing. E, did you see that? T, no, what? E, I'll turn around, you gotta see this. T, dude, don't get us pulled over, WTF, chill. E makes a U-turn and turns down a street. Nothing there, so he stops in front of a random house to look around. T, WTF was it? Just drive. E, I just saw a dude pushing a stroller with 2 wiener dogs in it. T, you're retarded. As soon as he started driving again, a cop car pulls up behind them and lights them up. Cop 1, what are you guys doing? E, panicking a bit, I saw a guy pushing a stroller with wiener dogs in it and had to show my free. Cop 2, how come you're parked in front of this known trap house and your car smells like dope? T, silence. E, this guy with a stroller and cops get out of the car. Car gets searched, they find all the shit. As they're getting loaded into the back of the cop car all handcuffed up, Cop 2 just stops. Cop 2, hey Cop 1, look at that. Cop 1, no shit. Everyone looks up at this old guy pushing a stroller with his 2 wiener dogs poking their heads out. Cops burst out laughing. They both got charged with possession, trafficking. Good times. My department frequently had to deal with this male escort who kept getting released in work release programs. No joke, we caught this guy giving out handjobs in broad daylight at stoplights. Anyways, I and a few co-workers leave town for a conference, and guess who we fucking find up to his old tricks? Outside of our jurisdiction, so we don't do anything about it besides report him, but we talked to him and he gave some bullshit excuse about how he was flown in on a private jet for some record deal. Yes, he had mentioned his hip-hop career to us earlier. No, I never got his SoundCloud link. Anyways, we sort of forget about him until we get to the Greyhound station, and there he fucking is again, up to his normal tricks. He obviously wanted to deflect the conversation from what he was doing, so he offered to give us a ride back to our city in his private jet. We detain him, but before we can even call the local station, a limo rolls up and the chauffeur walks around with a sign with his name on it. Dude was telling the truth about his record deal. We definitely upgraded our travel arrangements after apologizing for not believing him. Little shit still gives us regular trouble, of course. This was my favorite story from my 4th grade teacher, not a cop. She went to a cousin's wedding in mid-July. The cousin had overestimated how much champagne they would need at the reception and was giving away bottles to anyone who was interested, so my teacher took 3 and put them in the backseat of her car. Again, this was a hot summer day in July. After saying their goodbyes, my teacher, her husband, and her parents piled into the car and pulled out onto the highway, where 2 bottles burst open, spraying champagne everywhere and causing quite a ruckus. Of course, while this was happening, the car was swerving as the driver was also getting bathed in sparkling champagne. So it came as no surprise that as soon as they collected themselves, they saw the familiar flashing lights of a state trooper and pulled over. According to my teacher, the first thing the cops said was, "I'm not gonna ask if you've been drinking because I can smell it from here." My teacher tried explaining what had happened, but the cop wouldn't hear of it and ordered everyone out of the car. That's when the cops saw that everyone, both drivers and passengers, were dressed in their finery, but soaked with champagne, and looking quite shaken. A cursory search showed the open bottles, but the cops still insisted on a quick sobriety check just to make sure. Not a cop, but when I was in university I went to a party and got totally loaded. I decided I shouldn't go to the bar and started walking home. En route, I remember specifically deciding I was too drunk, a cop was going to pick me up, and I should stay at my friends Brent and Scott's place. I walked through the front door, kicked off my shoes, yelled up the stairs that it was just me, I'd done this before, and crashed on the couch. Roughly an hour and a half later, maybe around 1:30 in the morning, I wake up in cuffs. I'm a really heavy sleeper, with alcohol in my system or not, so they were having a real tough time waking me. Finally I wake, realize I can't move my arms, and see 2 cops and a family of 4. Holy shit, what had happened? The family is just staring at me and the cops start demanding answers. Naturally, I'm like, ugh, is Brent here? The cops are not impressed. Finally, after about 20 minutes of them shouting at me, I kind of clue in. I ask them the date, it was May 1st. Their lease had literally expired the day before and the new tenants moved in. I explained and finally asked the cop if I could call them and prove it. They let me, and I had the cop ask him what his address was the day before. Brent recited the same one I had been sleeping in. They still gave me a drunk in public ticket, but no trespassing ticket, and drove me home. If you liked this, please like and/or subscribe, and if you think it's worth it, please share.